So today we're taking a look at two of the best extended, fully addressable RGB mouse mats. Tons of customization in terms of LED lighting options available for both of these. But despite them looking rather similar, they're actually quite different in more ways than you'd expect. Now, a bunch of you may have already seen my video on the Razer Strider Chroma mouse mat that I made about a year ago, and Hyte happened to reach out and sent me theirs as well. Well, under the condition that I don't poke a hole in their mouse mat like I did with the Razer one for the sake of improved keyboard wire cable management, where I could route the wire through the mouse mat. Turns out that's a pretty bad idea, because I'm pretty sure the actual LED lights are built like right in the center of your extended RGB mouse mat. Hence why when you actually look at the LED mouse mat at like a certain angle, it's very, very bright because it's kind of spewing the light outwards in all directions. And that's the case with both of these. But there are a couple subtle differences with the way the RGB is kind of set up. So on the left we have the Hyte CNVS mouse mat, and on the right we have the Razer Strider Chroma. And if we take a look from like an overhead shot here, you can see the clouded plastic that actually has like the RGB lights kind of shining through is more exposed, I suppose, on the Razer Strider Chroma. And this does actually make a difference. And I'd say Razer's design choice doing it this way is a little bit better, because say we are a little bit further away from the mouse mats, you can see the edges of the Razer RGB from like any angle, more or less. Whereas with the Hyte one, you'll notice, despite we're at the same angle, you can see the edge of the Razer one, but you can't really quite see the edge of the Hyte one until you're like right over top of it. Another area where this applies is over in the control hub where the actual mouse mats are powered. On the Hyte one, they've actually one-upped Razer here by adding even more RGB than ever before. They have achieved a full 360-degree RGB mouse mat by adding RGB on the actual control hub right here, which I would say actually looks really good and would look even better had they had opted to use a thicker diffused LED channel all around the mouse mat, because we have a similar problem as we did earlier. You can see the RGB lighting starts, kind of disappears, and then reappears, and then disappears, unless you're over top of it. Then it looks really good, like RGB literally everywhere. Whereas on the Razer one, yes, it's not quite 360 degrees. It's like, you know, a 99% score, but at least the RGB lighting looks super consistent no matter what angle you're looking at it from. Speaking of consistency, neither one of these mouse mats suffer from hot spots or dim spots. They use completely different LED lighting technology to what we have seen in the past from the likes of the Razer Goliathus Chroma series of mouse mats that I have reviewed on the channel in the past, that use two light sources on the actual hub, pretty much pointing outwards in each direction, and anything in this part of the mouse mat, especially on the corners, would look very bright, but the further away you would get from the light source, the dimmer the mouse mat would get. Funnily enough, a good example of like bad RGB lighting implementation is in my car. Well, bad in the sense of the method we used. There's a fiber optic bead with the light source there, obviously, pointing outwards in either direction, and as you can see, it's bright there and then basically non-existent here in daylight. Same goes for this setup, like, yeah, it's bright there, but then the further away you get from the light source, the worse it gets. And that's typically what you see with like a traditional mouse mat with RGB, is this kind of setup with a fiber optic bead and a light source. Yep, it's not looking good. It doesn't look too bad in the back where it's a bit darker, but out here in the front, oh boy, there's some definite hotspots and non-existent RGB everywhere else. And as you can see, this is of course not the case whatsoever with either one of these mouse mats. No real dim spots whatsoever. The corners are just as bright as this part, as that part, like nothing really changes. The same goes for the Hyte CNVS mouse mat. There aren't really any dim spots whatsoever. Since the Hyte one also uses more than double the amount of LEDs compared to the Razer one, you can actually see the LEDs kind of shining through ever so slightly on the mouse mat, and you can kind of see the same thing on the Razer one. They're just a little bit more spread out, but when you're actually over top looking down at them, you can't really see the LEDs, and both of them are genuinely looking really good. Now, since the Hyte mouse mat does have more than double the LEDs compared to the Razer one, you gotta find a good way to power all those LEDs. So the Hyte one requires either one USB-C to C connection, or USB-C to the mouse mat and then two USB-A ports to fully power the brightness of the LEDs on this one. Whereas with the Razer one, it's just a single USB-A connection. Controlling the RGB lighting and customizing it to your own liking with the Razer one is of course done through the Razer Synapse 3 software. We see the Razer Strada Chroma has been detected right here on our dashboard. We press on that, we have a simple toggle for LEDs on versus off, an adjustment slider for the brightness from 0% up to 100, a toggle to switch the lighting off when your display is turned off, and then we get to the quick effects that are super simple to use. We have audio meter, breathing, reactive, spectrum cycle, static, and wave. You can easily reverse the direction on the wave pattern as well, and there's a button here to apply the same effect that we have on this product in particular to the rest of your Razer Chroma ecosystem. Just by hitting this button, you can see now my keyboard turns to the same LED lighting effect. Heading over to the advanced options though, we have the Chroma Studio that allows you to customize things per zone. So you can see on the mouse mat, we have our 19 zones, each individually customizable. So you could set every one of these zones to a different color, turn them off in fact if you want half the mouse mat with no LEDs and the other half with LEDs. That is all possible on the Razer Chroma Studio. Now when we take a look at the Hyte software, I'm gonna just turn Synapse off entirely, and you're gonna see why in a second, because Hyte have their own program. It's called their Hyte Nexus. It looks very different, okay, to the Razer Synapse program. And before we head over into the lighting options, I just wanna show you something. So if we go into settings, okay, you're gonna notice something. If we head over to performance, this is a pretty interesting area here where you can actually customize the performance of the RGB lighting, because this can use a little bit of your CPU usage. So if you do have a potato PC and you want maximum FPS, I suppose, you may want to turn these settings down to like an efficiency mode as opposed to the high quality, smooth RGB lighting modes. The Razer program, to my understanding, doesn't have any settings of the sort available for people to adjust. Then if we head over to the device manager, this is where things get a little bit interesting, because you might notice we currently have 2 devices detected, and as we scroll through the supported device list on the Hyte software, you're gonna notice a couple of popular brand names appear, like Razer, Corsair, we have HyperX, and you may also notice the Razer Strada Chroma mouse mat appear. You can't control the Hyte mouse mat using Razer Synapse, but you can control the Razer mouse mat using Hyte software. We are currently controlling the Razer mouse mat and the Hyte mouse mat through the same bit of software, which is a mega bonus. And not only that, you're gonna notice there's more items on here than just the Razer Strada Chroma and the Hyte Canvas mouse mat. We have my motherboard and my fans. The RGB Lian Li cables, because they're plugged into my motherboard header, are all controlled by one program, which is absolutely phenomenal. And in terms of the RGB lighting effect customization, oh man, there's a lot to choose from here. Various things from mixed color, color shift, fixed color rotate. There's just a lot, and every single one of these is customizable. You could choose any one of these and completely change the colors and the saturation, the speed, the turbulence of the effect. And they also have options similar to what Razer have in their Chroma Studio, like screen mirroring, audio visualization. You could set some media here. Static colors as well are available, and you can even set up, wow, this is cool. You can set up brightness adjustment based on the time of day. Big thumbs up to Hyte here. Very smart. I like that. Over on the right hand side of the menu, we even have a toggle to switch between a universe mode where every item is like on the same spot of the, I don't know, color board that you see on screen, or you can set it to planet mode where you can move every single device, change its orientation, flip its orientation, rotate them, toggle them on or off. Like, this is really good stuff. And using the settings that I showed you in the corner there, I've mimicked the orientation of these 2 mouse mats in real life to what the software sees. So you can see the color follows from here, bounces there, goes through the Razer one, and back through here, exactly what it's like in real life. And now I've gone ahead and set up a different lighting effect to show you the smoothness of the LED lighting effects. Now, this one of course has 50 LEDs versus the Razer one just having 19. And hopefully you can see on camera the massive difference this makes to the smoothness of what is trying to be illustrated on screen here. So you can see, because there's a lot more LEDs, it's just way more smoother on the Hyte mouse mat. versus the Razer one not quite being as smooth. You can see it's kind of jumping around from zone to zone. The dimensions of both of these mouse mats as well are nearly identical in every way, apart from one. So they both measure in at 37 centimeters by 90 centimeters, but the Razer one is considerably thinner, coming in at just 3 millimeters, whereas the Hyte mouse mat has without a doubt been on a bulk recently and is coming in at 5 millimeters in thickness. And after all, these are mouse mats, they're not just LED strips. I know this video has been largely about LED lighting and all, but the surfaces of these two mouse mats couldn't be more different. The Hyte CNVS mouse mat uses this silky smooth cloth surface that is actually like really smooth. The mouse effortlessly glides along it. It's very nice. It does have a little bit of squidge. I don't know if this is a bad thing or a good thing. It's probably irrelevant. It's a bit of cushioning, I suppose, right? It's a nice mouse mat, no doubt about it. I've loved using this thing for the last half year. The Razer one, on the other hand, does not have any squidge, really. Maybe like 0.1 of a mil. It is pretty much rock hard. And also the surface is completely different. It is nothing like the Hyte one that is like just cloth and smooth, silky. The Razer one is a lot more rough. It feels like it's a mix of like cloth, but also like the hard textured plastic, which also results in an effortlessly gliding mouse. It is a little bit cloudy outside right now, but you can still see that both mouse mats look really good. Even in a super well lit environment that we have here, they still look real nice. Especially the Hyte one, I reckon it looks a little bit more brighter, at least in the center area where most of the LEDs are. Both of them are looking damn good in daylight, and I have just had a look over on the Hyte website, and turns out I think they might also have a fully white version of this mouse mat available. I can't find any pictures of it on their own website, but if I do find one online, I'll try to put it up on screen. But it is available in black and white for $99, whereas the Razer one, prices might change based on when you watch this video, so I would recommend you check the links in both the pinned comment and video description down below to both of these mouse mats to see what the prices are in your own country. Maybe they'll be on sale when you're watching this video. So yeah, the Razer one, at least on the Razer side, is a little bit more expensive. All in all, you can't really go wrong with either choice for these mouse mats. I think they're both really good. And it's difficult to say like a definite winner here. Both of them have their pros and cons, their similarities and also their differences. And I think it just comes down to like personal preference. Like, do you prefer a more silky smooth mouse surface or like a bit of a more rough plasticky feeling one? Do you prefer the RGB lighting implementation that Razer have done? Or do you not care about you not being able to see every single edge of the RGB lighting? Like, it's very, very minor differences in some ways. Like if your mouse mat, for example, has to have a detachable USB-C cable, then you're gonna go for the Hyte one. Like, either way, these are both solid options, both pretty good ecosystems as well. Hyte have definitely expanded since their Hyte Y60 PC case release, which I am still using in the setup. Absolutely phenomenal case. And maybe in the future we'll take a look at some more Hyte stuff. That would be real good because I love their case. They made a great mouse mat as well. So yeah, all in all, links of course are down below in the video description to both of these mouse mats and the rest of the gaming setup. And if you fancy watching my previous video where I checked out some of Akara's smart home tech that I implemented throughout the office, we've got a fancy sensor up there that is way more advanced than a motion sensor. You can check that video out on screen now, and I'll see you in another one soon.